Welcome back. The show is still the Presbyterian show, the show that discusses everything Presbyterian. We're still here with Reverend Dr. Seth Kissi, and let's continue with the discussion. Rev, so what's your driving force? What drives you in life?
What drives me is the amount of sacrifice Jesus made for us to be able to save me and to bring me this far.
Right.
He sacrificed so much. And so I will always ask myself, what can I do in return? So the little I can do, I always want to give of my best. I always want to give of my best.
So desire.
And so in everything I have to do, whether in teaching, whether in learning, whether in being a Presbytery chairperson, whether in trying to get a project done, I putting all. The impact on me is usually great. I feel it sometimes even when you go to bed. You can feel it sometimes where you have to go in order to be able to get some resources to be able to do it. Achimabakwas, for instance, is not that all that endowed when it comes to finances.
Exactly.
And so you have to be getting to places. You go, you'll be rejected, you come, and it is like you are down. And yet we still keep on pushing. Some of the people will have to abandon them. Others will keep pushing until finally they respond to us. And I do all that because Jesus did so much.
Right.
He had to sacrifice so much.
Right, that's fine.
For us.
Rev, so you're an author.
Yeah.
You are also a scholar. And you were once a chairperson of a presbytery.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you see a certain moderator, Seth Kissi, in the pipeline?
It is all in the hands of God. You see, when your life is in His hands, He determines what He wants to do with you. And you are at peace when you say, have your own way. Do with me as you want. I think that is the best thing. So wherever I find myself, God tells me what to do. And He does with me what He wants to do with me.
But I want to believe
I
that
always have a recourse to the prayer we offer when we do the covenant service. Where we say, put me to use, if you will. Let me be about nothing, if that is what you will for me. And so that is what I always say. Yeah. So if the Lord decides that in the next 2 years, in the next 5 years, in the next so and so years, He wants to place me here or there, I am for it. I used to be a Presbytery chairperson. Now I am minister in charge. I'm not even a district minister.
Okay.
But I'm working happily and I feel fulfilled with everything the Lord is doing with me. And so my life is in His hands. Wherever He decides to place me, I will say, I am there for you, Lord.
That's fine, fine. So, how many books have you authored?
I have authored, I think, 4 books. The 5th one, I did it together with my professor. That is what we use in teaching Greek in the seminaries and the universities. Yeah, so I have done this book. I have done Wisdom, Knowledge, and Spirituality in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 1 to chapter 1 to 6. I've done the gifts and spirituality in understanding the subject in the context of 1 Corinthians. I have also done thesis writing, addressing some common problems, challenges of students in thesis writing.
Okay, that's fine. So let's zero in on this book that you've authored. I like the whole design of the book.
Okay,
so understanding some disputed church practices.
Yeah.
Chapters with Bible study outlines.
Yeah.
So what informed this title?
Yes, at the end of the day, when I had written everything down, I asked myself, what have I done? And I realized I was helping in all these I was helping people to understand the selected disputed church practices. And that is why I came up with the title, Understanding Some Disputed Church Practices.
Okay, so in your acknowledgements, you indicated that the moderator of PCG, that's Right Reverend Dr. Abraham. Exactly. He inspired the title.
Yeah, he helped me to shape the title.
Exactly.
You know, there's a funny thing. I still remember it, and I'm laughing at myself. You know, I started writing this whole book with the first chapter in mind.
Okay, which is
why worship on Sunday.
Okay.
So that became the title of the book, if you like. And I kept it, even though I had added other topics to it. At the end of the day, I just couldn't take it off. I don't know why. And so it was like, why we worship on Sunday was the main thing. And then understanding some disputed church practices. That was how I left it.
Okay.
So I sent a copy to him. I wanted him to write endorsement for the book.
Right.
In fact, he did an endorsement. The clerk of the General Assembly did one endorsement.
Right.
The president of the Ministers' Conference also did an endorsement. So I went to him one day, the moderator. We were discussing this thing, and he said, but the topic, he brought it up. So, but I don't know, but this is what I did.
Okay.
This is what I'm facing. So when we had discussed everything, I decided to do away with that because it didn't really sound well. It didn't really sound well, but I just couldn't take it off. It didn't sound well, but I just couldn't take it off.
That's fine.
So I had the courage to take it off because of the engagement with the moderator.
The moderator.
Yes.
Okay.
And I really appreciate that.
That's fine. You know, the thing about this book, okay, Understanding Some Disputed Church Practices, is that once you start to read, it's difficult to just put it away.
Yeah.
But before we go deep into it, the preface says that I've had the desire to write this book for many years, but it could not be a reality due to a number of factors.
Yeah.
But you did not mention those factors. What were those factors that impeded the desire to write a book?
You are the first person asking me this question.
Yes.
The factors mainly time. Because I was teaching at the seminary and my work was a handful.
Okay.
Are you okay? I mean, it was, let me say, it was enough to occupy my whole time. And I was also in charge of a congregation.
Okay.
And when I became a Presbytery chairperson, it was worse. Was all over the place doing administrative work and other things in addition. So I just couldn't make time for this book.
Okay. But you know, there's a saying that if you want to hide something from the black man, you put it in the book.
Yeah.
You know, the black man struggles or doesn't like to read, let alone even buy a book. Was that one of the reasons why impeded your desire to write a book?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think that in spite of the saying, if you have some good stuff in a book, people are willing to read. And this book has really proven so.
Yes.
If I look at the demands on the book and how people read, and as you said, there are a lot of people who have given me this feedback that you are giving me. Say, once you start reading, you cannot put it down. And it is the same spirit in which I wrote, because when I started, I couldn't stop until I finished. I was writing in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, in the night. Sometimes in the night, I'll just get up and put a few things down. Thanks to God that I had this iPad, so I could take it everywhere. And I wrote everything from the beginning to the end with this iPad. So I was carrying it everywhere and writing everywhere until I completed it. I couldn't stop writing.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So now let's go deep into the book.
That's fine.
Now, you discuss five main thematic areas.
Yeah.
Why worship on Sunday? Why baptize infants? Why take dead bodies to church? Can Christians eat any food? Should women cover their heads in church? 5 very strong thematic areas. what informed these thematic areas? But before we proceed, let's take a break.
All right.
When we come back, we'll continue. Folks, we are still here with Reverend Dr. Seth Kissi. We are reviewing his book that he authored a couple of months ago. The book titled Understanding Some Disputed Church Practices. Don't go away. We'll come back, and when we do, we'll go deep into it. Don't go away.
This is a voice sampled for Ed Music Studio. As part of our strategy to meet the vocal requirements of our most cherished clients, we have sampled different voice clips to aid clients appreciate the clarity of our voices and our delivery styles. Check out our other voice samples and pick what suits your brand the most. You can reach us for your jingles and voiceovers on 0244-207-397 or 0271-223-444 or 0302-327-039. Thank you for listening.
Welcome back. The show is still the Presbyterian show, the show that discusses everything Presbyterian. We are still here with Reverend Dr. Seth Kissi. We are reviewing his book, Understanding Some Disputed Church Practices. Rev, so what informed the choice of these thematic areas? Was there any study that you undertook that led you to select these 5 thematic areas?
The questions that normally come to me from my members, from members of the congregation. So I picked them from the kind of issues, concerns that my church members had. And I had more than that actually, but these are the first 5 of such questions.
Okay.
So I just settled on them because I thought if we're to have an order by the way they interacted with me on their concerns, these are the first 5 that I should pay attention to.
Infant baptism.
Yeah.
Now, you indicated in the book that the validity of baptism is on the formula. What exactly does that mean?
So this is on the general topic of baptism.
Yes.
Not infant baptism. We have not come there yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so when it comes to baptism, it is, I was talking about the validity.
Yes.
It is valid when it is done according to the prescription of Jesus.
Which is?
Found in Matthew chapter 28, verse 19.
Right.
Go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Here we have a prescription, if you like, an instruction as to how baptism is to be done. And it is the only place where we have people being instructed to baptize. You don't find any instruction to believers to baptize anywhere. You can read a lot of baptisms in Acts of the Apostles. There are statements of what took place and things like that. But the only instruction to people who made disciples to baptize such disciples comes from Jesus Christ, and it is only in this instance where he said, baptize them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit.
So
now in this, we find the formula.
Exactly.
He prescribed what we call the formula. The formula is the name in which you baptize the candidate. The name by which you baptize the candidate. And Jesus said it should be done in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Previously, people thought that in the same instruction that Jesus gave, there was a mode.
Yes.
And they were appealing to the word baptizo, and would argue that baptizo means to immerse.
Yes.
But they have come back to revise their notes and have acknowledged that baptizo does not necessarily imply to immerse. In fact, baptizo means to wash.
Right.
Even with the washing of hands before meals, the word baptizo is used. So when Jesus' disciples were accused of not washing their hands before eating according to the traditions of the elders, the word they used there was baptizo. They do not baptizo their hands before washing, before eating.
Before eating, yeah.
They do not baptizo their hands before. So baptizo in the New Testament doesn't mean to immerse. It simply means to wash.
To wash.
And now they have come back to acknowledge that baptizo means to wash.
Okay.
And therefore, the word Jesus used there does not prescribe a mode. He only prescribed the formula.
Right.
Which has come to be known as the Trinitarian formula.
Exactly.
That is to baptize in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit.
But can we
so
do...
baptism is valid.
Yes, exactly.
Valid when you do it according to the prescription of Christ.
So can we do away with the modes and still have a valid baptism?
The point is that whichever mode, I want us to put it that way, whichever mode is adopted, because you can hardly do baptism without a mode.
Okay, so the two are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah,
you need to identify a mode,
exactly,
and then validate it with the formula.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Let's look at confirmation.
Okay.
Is that also prescribed?
No, confirmation is not prescribed anywhere.
So then what's the essence of confirmation?
I think we learned this from the Jews. The Jews would normally put their children into the covenant that God made with Abraham.
Yes.
On the 8th day, if you are a male, you will be given the sign of the covenant, which is circumcision.
Okay.
They will not wait for you to reach the age of discretion to ask you whether you want to be part of the covenant God made with their father Abraham or not.
Okay.
They will put that covenant on you. You become part of it right at the day 8th. Not even a year. Not even a year. 8th day.
8th day, okay.
And then you grow up to know Yahweh as your God.
Okay.
They will teach you through the process in your infancy and everything. They will school them in the synagogues.
Right.
They build the synagogues for the purpose of schooling the children in the things of God.
Okay.
Now, at a point, they also did something like confirmation and gave their children the opportunity to publicly confess their faith when they come to the age of discretion. But before then, they partook in everything they did as people who were in covenant with God. They ate their sacred meal on the Passover. They will take part in the Passover meal. They will eat the unleavened bread, and they will do all those things with them. They celebrated the events of their redemption and everything with them. So the children were part of the covenant from the 8th day.
Right.
But then when they grew up, said, now you have been part of something. Publicly make a confession of it. And they did it. So there's something we learned from the Jews.
Okay. Yes. But currently, do you think that our youth really appreciate what confirmation is all about?
Well, it is something that we need to find out.
Is it not a case of asking them to memorize some... What do you call it?
I get the point. I think that in the church, when we do the confirmation, all that you hear is the recitation.
Exactly.
But during the classes, they are taught what these mean. The lessons include explanation of what they recite actually mean for them. But you see, when we come to do the public thing,
yes,
they can only recite. They cannot tell you the lessons there. Then we will not close. So the impression you have during the ceremony is mere recitation, but during the classes, they are actually schooled to understand the things that they recite. It is a way of memorization. But they are actually taught to understand what they are doing.
Papa, why do we worship on Sundays?
We worship on Sundays because Sunday marks the day of our redemption.
It could be any other day.
No.
Why Sunday?
No.
Why Sunday?
No. It must be Sunday.
It must be Sunday.
It must be Sunday.
Because of?
Jesus, after he had died to pay for our sins. His victory over death, over sin, over Satan, over the powers of darkness took place on Sunday when he rose again from the dead.
So if I worship on a Monday, does it affect the validity of my worship?
If you are convinced that the rule that Paul gave us in Romans chapter 4, when it comes to observing a day, he said one must be convinced in his mind. That is the first one. So you must have your reasons why it should be Monday. Then 2, it must be observed in honor of the Lord. I wrote this book because I want those who worship on Sunday to understand why we do that. And therefore be convinced in our minds that when the apostles and the early church started worshiping on Sunday right in biblical times, and when subsequent generations of believers also worshipped on Sunday, they had very good basis in doing that. So in worshiping on Sunday, they were doing a weekly memorial of the resurrection of the dead, which is very, very significant when it comes to our salvation history. If Jesus had not risen, we wouldn't be Christians.
But Papa, what would you say to those who would say that the Sunday worship is a pagan ritual?
It is a propaganda.
Because they indicate that the then emperor Constantine, yes, who was converted to Christianity, was formerly a pagan, influenced the decision to change the worship from Saturday to Sunday. So it has pagan connotations.
You see, I think it is just a deliberate attempt to overlook the evidence that Christians were worshiping on Sunday more than 100 years, more than a century before Constantine's decree in 321 BC. Constantine's decree was in 321 CE,
right?
Or AD. Before then, Christians were worshiping on Sunday. Way back, it began even from the New Testament times.
So it has nothing to do with any pagan ritual.
It has nothing to do. In fact, Constantine's decree, I quoted it in this book.
Exactly, yeah.
It has nothing to do with Christians observing Sunday as worship. In fact, that decree was not even meant for all the citizens in this empire. It was only meant for those in the cities, the judges and those people, those big people. In fact, Constantine stated in the decree that those who are in the country, who are engaged in agriculture, they are not affected by this. They're exempted because they may, there are specific times when they have to be planting food and crops and those things. So they shouldn't bother them with those things. So it was something for just those in the city. It was not meant for the entire citizens of the country, of the empire. It was not meant for Christians because Christians had been worshiping on Sunday more than a century before Constantine's decree. Attempts to make Constantine's decree the reason why Christians worship on Sunday is just a deliberate something for polemic advantage.
But you know why I wouldn't eat a cockroach? Because I find it very dirty. I find it scary. I have no biblical reason for saying that it's a particular food. So it's not really an issue for me. It is not really a dispute for me.
Okay.
But you state as part of this book that can Christian eat any food as a dispute in the church? How is it so?
Because there are laws in the Old Testament that people are still trying to push on all Christians. There are laws on clean foods. There are laws on unclean foods. And so some foods, like some meats like pork and other things are prohibited. And there are some group of Christians who believe that every Christian must observe those rules.
Right.
But right in the New Testament, you find that those rules were not being observed by Christians, even Jewish Christians. Even Peter, Barnabas, Paul did not observe those these are Jews.
Okay.
These are Jews. They are not Gentiles.
Gentiles, okay.
And these laws were meant for Jews. So those of us who are Gentile Christians, we have nothing to do with those Jewish laws.
Okay.
I explained the difference between the Jewish laws
and
the
Gentile
universal moral laws.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so universal moral laws cover everybody wherever you are, whether you are a Jew or not. But these are Jewish laws having to do with clean and unclean food, circumcision, Sabbath. They are all Jewish laws meant for the ethnic people who have their descent from Abraham.
Okay.
And they don't concern us. But the point I'm making is that even those who have their descent from Abraham, like Peter, like Paul, like Barnabas, because they followed Jesus, they were eating this food. They were eating this food. Galatians chapter 2. They were eating this food. Acts of the Apostles chapter 11. After Peter had seen that thing in the trance, where he saw those prohibited animals.
Yes.
And then God said, kill and eat. So I won't. Eventually, when he came out of the trance, there were people inviting him to come to the house of Cornelius to preach the gospel.
Exactly, yeah.
And he went there emboldened by this that he saw, even though somehow reluctantly. When he went to preach to the house of Cornelius, and he saw that the Holy Spirit, in fact, God decided to do something to convince him that he was in favor of what was happening. So he allowed the Holy Spirit to fall on them. And that was when Peter had the courage. So he said, no, these people, God has accepted them. How can I reject them? And so he took the vision he had seen seriously. That is why he stayed with them. And a Jew going into the house of a Gentile meant defilement. That's why Peter didn't want to go.
Exactly.
He stayed with them. This time, not just to stay with them, he also ate with them. So he ate with them in the house of Cornelius. When he came to Antioch too, where there was a booming church there, he stayed with the Gentiles there. He ate with them. That's what you read from Galatians chapter 2. That is when some people from the circumcision party came, and Peter wanted to behave as if he had nothing to do with these Gentile believers. Paul rebuked him. But you have been behaving like a Gentile. You have been chopping with them, chopping your food. Everything. Now that these people came, look at what you are doing. Look, he rebuked him openly. And that was the basis on which he argued that if you who are a Jew, you are living like a Gentile, why then do you want to impose these Jewish laws on Gentiles? Because you have been behaving like a Gentile. You have been chopping their food, prohibited food. You have broken these Jewish laws that they are breaking. The Gentiles are breaking. You have joined them in breaking the law. Now are you going to impose these laws that you have joined them to break? Are you going to impose them back on them? No, you cannot do that.
So double standards.
Yes, you cannot do that. You have already joined them in eating unclean foods.
Exactly. So on the point of double standards, we'll take a break. Okay. When we come back, we'll continue with the discussion. Folks, it's been interesting. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll continue with the discussion. Don't go away. Welcome back. We're still with Papa discussing his book, Understanding Some Disputed Church Practices.
Yeah.
So, Papa, taking dead bodies to church,
Yeah.
why is that an issue?
Well, it's an issue because there are people out there who are saying it is wrong. If you take dead bodies to the church, you desecrate the church. Dead bodies are unclean. And they are appealing to Leviticus and Numbers for this. Yes, it was very clear in Leviticus. Anybody who touches a dead person becomes defiled.
Okay, unclean.
But even if you touch something that has already touched a dead body, that thing, if it is a cloth, are you okay? Or even if you enter the room where a dead body is, by going into that room, you become defiled. That is what it is in the Old Testament. But in the New Testament, it is not. In the New Testament, you find Jesus touching all the prohibited people, all the unclean people. This he saw the dead person. He said some dead person. He laid his hands on it. He took them by the hand. Are you okay? And raised them.
Lazarus.
Yeah, and even the woman, the widow of Nain, whose son had died, and they were carrying him in the coffin.
Exactly.
He touched the coffin. He wasn't supposed to touch it, because if you touch anything that has touched a dead body, you become defiled. A beggar was asked, a leper was asking, if you will make me clean. The leper didn't ask him to touch him. He said, you can make me clean.
Yes.
And Jesus could have just spoken and made him clean. But Jesus went ahead and touched the person he was not supposed to touch.
But the leper was alive. Yeah, we're talking about the dead person.
Now, if the leper is unclean, that is why when they come, they shout, unclean, 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 unclean. I'm saying that Jesus came touching all the unclean things.
Okay.
That's the point I'm making.
Oh, okay.
That's the point
That's
I'm
what you
making.
mean.
So I've given an examples of how he touched dead bodies, unclean. How he touched a leper, who is also unclean. How he even allowed a woman with 12 years of bleeding to touch him. I didn't condemn the woman. I even commended him. Your faith has made you well.
So you advocate that dead bodies should be brought to church.
Yes.
And at what circumstance would you decline such a request?
If the person died of a very infectious disease, in fact, the doctors would not even allow the person to be laid in state. Yeah. And in fact, generally, dead bodies are not to be toyed with. Okay, so even those who handle them, they handle them in a very careful manner. Now, so if you are bringing them to the chapel, you usually prepare them, put them in a coffin, and you have the top open for people to view, after which you cover and take the dead body out for burial. So we treat them with special care so that we don't create any problems. If the person died of a highly infectious disease,
like Ebola,
it will not even come to the chapel. Or coronavirus. Those days you saw how they would just rush the person from the mortuary to the cemetery, and you will not even allow people to come around. It was only very specially trained healthcare professionals who handled them. Even those people would protect themselves. You can see how they dress up and so on. So that is how it is. You see, we are not only the Lord's when we are alive, we are also the Lord's even in death. For no one lives to himself and no one dies to himself. If we live,
we live for the
we
Lord.
live to the Lord. And if we die, we die to the Lord. Therefore, whether we live
or we die,
or whether we die, we are the Lord's. And it's emphasized that He is the Lord both of the living
and the dead.
So He does not reject us when we die. He does not. He welcome. Even you know that there is something in Jude where there was a dispute over the body of Moses, that the archangel and the devil had to contend over the body
exactly.
of Moses. Why? He has died. What about his body? It tells you the importance of the body of the believer. And mind you, we in our creed, we talk about the resurrection of the body. So the body is it's not just something to be discarded, useless. It is something that holds significance for a future glorification that our bodies are going to assume. And we must affirm that even in death, one day we will resurrect. And so the body should be the body of believers. So where I am, always worshiping God, when I die, I am brought to the place.
Now, but let me put you on the spot here.
Okay.
Would you bring a non-communicant, his body, to the church?
That is a localized doctrinal issues. I don't even know where they are enshrined. Are you okay? I'm not even aware. If you ask me, where are they written?
Yes.
I'm wondering where I can find them. I'm wondering where I can refer you to. Are you okay? But I think these are issues that we need to perhaps think more critically about.
Maybe a part 2
because because they were also worshiping with us.
Exactly.
We don't have to insist that every woman should cover their heads when they come to church.
Exactly.
We shouldn't insist. Because you see what head covering symbolized in that world. You know, when we talk of that world of the New Testament, it didn't cover where we are. You know, that was a very restricted world. The only part of Africa that was known in that world was, I think, Egypt, Ethiopia, and those places. West Africa here, well, even those places, they didn't have churches in the New Testament. So in those places, they didn't have churches at that time. Are you okay? So it is something that took place in a limited world in which head covering symbolized something. So if you didn't put on head covering, it meant something. What it meant is that you were not submissive to your husband, you did not respect the authority of your husband. And so if you read the passage on that, 1 Corinthians chapter 11, it is very clearly stated that that is the problem. So if we have a culture in which head covering means a woman's submission to her husband's authority and respect, I will say, let us go ahead and do it.
Right.
Are you okay? But in our case, if my wife comes to church without covering her head, it doesn't indicate to anybody that she doesn't respect me.
You. Exactly.
It doesn't indicate to anybody that she's not submissive. Are you okay? We don't have that problem. So why should we import it? We don't have it.
Papa, you earlier mentioned the Apostles' Creed. What is your take on the amendment that has been effected, where the Holy Catholic Church has now been modified to universal? What's your take on it?
I think it is a brilliant one.
Okay.
I think it is so, because no matter how you explain it, there are people who come back to say that, but we don't belong to the Roman Catholic Church. And you say, I believe in the Holy Catholic Church, and it doesn't matter how much you explain it, people still have issue. So why not change it and render it in a way that will make sense to them?
Okay.
After all, when we say the Holy Catholic Church, we mean the Holy Universal Church.
Universal Church, exactly.
If the use of universal will solve the problem, why do you still stick to Holy Catholic Church and confuse your people?
But the point is that even per the circular that was issued, it indicated that ambiguity that could arise.
Yeah.
So if it has no reason, why would you want to amend it? If it's not broken, why fix it?
No, it is already there. People are raising questions. Maybe you haven't noted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, people are raising questions. And there are some who say that when they get to the part where they have to say...
They're silent. That's interesting.
Oh, yes. So it is an issue.
Okay.
It is. It is an issue. Yes.
That's fine. Papa, it's been wonderful having a chat with you, discussing this book. I think the book is brilliant. During the launch, the moderator and the clerk
of the General Assembly
indicated that they would appreciate if you do a part 2 to talk about other, disputed church practices. I'm sure it's something that you're considering.
I think I am doing that very seriously.
Interesting.
And I'm praying for the grace
we thank God.
to be able to do it.
We thank God for your life, Papa. Thank God for your life, Papa. So, Papa, what will be your final word? And then you tell us where this book can be purchased?
Okay. My final word to everybody is that if you're a believer, understand that the Lord Jesus Christ sacrificed so much. God sacrificed his best for us.
Okay.
So live for him and do your best in doing that. And if you have work, you have to serve. Give of your best in serving the Lord. Your future is in his hands. Where he is pleased, he will place you at the right time.
Amen.
Now this book, we have about 35 centers that you can get there.
Okay.
So in Accra, you can get some from the head office of the Presbyterian Church at Osu. You can get some from the Presbytery office. You can get some at Trinity Theological Seminary, from University of Ghana, the Kingdom Bookshop.
All over.
Yeah, and in all the Presbytery Presbytery offices, from Bogatanga to Tamale to Sunyane.
What about folks outside the country?
Yeah.
Is it online? Can it be purchased?
Yeah, it is online actually. It is online.
Amazon.
Some have Amazon. So some have already purchased some on Amazon. But we have also sent copies to New Jersey, Orange.
Okay.
Some copies are there, physical copies that you can buy. A few copies in Manhattan and a few copies in London.
Interesting.
Also, yeah.
Interesting. I think it's a wonderful book. In fact, when I started reading this book, I just couldn't put it down. And it's a great piece of material that you've produced. Thank you very much. So it's been an interesting discussion with Reverend Dr. Seth Kissi. His book, Understanding Some Disputed Church Practices, is a masterpiece. And I will encourage you to get a copy for yourself. Buy one for your family, buy one for your friends, and it will go a long way to help you understand some of these disputed church practices. Now, if you want Reverend Dr. Seth Kissi to autograph his signature in this book, you can see him at the Grace Congregation at West Legon. It's been an interesting discussion, and I thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again another time with another edition of the Presbyterian Show, the show that discusses everything Presbyterian. See you another time. Bye-bye.